They blocked my driveway with 2 orange cones and a cheap tow notice taped to my gate. I was helping my grandson with his bike when a woman in a tight, HOA jacket stormed over, phone already recording. She said I was trespassing on community land and told the kid to move before he got taken away too. The boy froze. I felt something snap inside me, but I stayed calm. Then she raised her voice so all the neighbors could hear and said, "Arrest him. He doesn't belong here." 2 men walked up behind her wearing police shirts that looked off like costumes from a party store. One grabbed my arm and said my house was under seizure. My grandson started crying, holding my leg. I looked at the fake badge on the man's chest and quietly asked, "Since when does the county use plastic badges?" The woman smirked and leaned close to my face. "Since people like you forget their place," she whispered. I slowly pulled my phone from my pocket, not to call anyone, but to stop the small camera that had been recording this whole time from inside my porch light, and I thought, they really believe I'm just some old man with no teeth left. This is about to hurt them in ways they don't see coming. The fake cop squeezed my arm harder and said, "Drop the phone, Grandpa, or you go in cuffs." I did the opposite and hit one button. Across the street, my neighbor Tom's garage door slid open like it was on cue, and a black pickup inside lit up with blue lights behind the windshield. The woman's smile vanished for half a second. Then she laughed loud to cover it. "Nice toy," she said, waving her HOA clipboard like a weapon. That's when my phone rang. I didn't answer. I put it on speaker. A calm voice filled the street. "Sir, this is County Dispatch. We just received your emergency signal from registered property owner Daniel Hayes. Is anyone impersonating law enforcement on your land right now?" Every head turned to me. I looked at the man holding my arm and slowly peeled his fingers off. "Yes, ma'am," I said, watching his face drain of color. "And they just told my grandson he might get taken away." The kid buried his face in my jacket as the fake cop stepped back, stuttering that it was all a misunderstanding, while the HOA woman shouted that this was her neighborhood, and she had full authority. I met her eyes and said the line she would never forget. "You don't put a leash on a dog you don't own." Dispatch told me to stay where I was and keep the line open. The 2 fake cops started walking away like nothing happened, but Tom's truck rolled out of the garage and stopped right behind them, blocking the road. Real blue lights flashed now, not the cheap ones. The HOA woman rushed toward the truck, yelling about illegal vehicles in a residential zone, but Tom didn't even open his door. He just held up his badge through the window. That's when she turned back to me, her voice shaking for the first time. "You planned this," she said. I shrugged and bent down to my grandson, wiping his tears with my thumb. "Buddy, remember what I told you? Bullies are loud until someone isn't scared." Then a county patrol car came flying in from the corner, tires screaming and another right behind it. The street filled with real uniforms, real radios, real power. One of the fake cops tried to hide his badge in his pocket, but a deputy grabbed his wrist and twisted it back out. The other one dropped his and said he was just helping the HOA. Felt a strange calm as I showed the first deputy the folded paper I had in my wallet the whole time. The deed with my name on it, dated 40 years back, stamped and sealed by the county. The deputy read it once, then looked up at the HOA woman. "Ma'am," he said, "do you understand you've been threatening a property owner on his own land?" She opened her mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Her knees went weak, but her voice came back fast, blaming everyone in sight. She said I stole that land, that the papers were fake, that the whole block was HOA controlled. One of the deputies asked her to step aside. She refused and tried to push past him to reach my grandson, still holding my jacket like it was a life rope. That was the last move she ever made as a free woman. The deputy caught her wrist and turned her around in one smooth motion, clicking the cuffs before she could shout again. The crowd that had been hiding behind curtains finally spilled onto their lawns. Phones up, whispers turning into gasps. One of the fake cops started crying, saying the HOA woman paid him cash to look official and scare me into leaving. The deputy wrote every word down while I stood there thinking about the medal buried in my drawer at home, the one I never show anyone. When a young officer asked me how I knew to set that porch camera trigger, I looked at the flag on his sleeve and said, "Some of us learned long ago how to protect our families without firing a single shot." He nodded slowly, like he finally saw me. The tow truck she had ordered was still sitting at the corner, engine running like it was waiting for a prize. A deputy waved it over, not to take my car, but to park right in front of the neighbors so everyone could see what almost happened. The driver looked confused until the officer told him this was now evidence in a case about fake arrests and child threats. His face went pale. The HOA woman started begging then, saying she was just doing her job, that the rules were the rules. I walked closer, not angry anymore, just tired. Rules don't give you the right to steal kids from their grandpas, I said. One of the deputies handed me a small body cam and asked me to point out the man who first grabbed me. I did, and the kid who had played cop earlier dropped to his knees, saying he didn't even know my real name, that he was told I was some nobody who wouldn't fight back. That's when I said the line people would repeat online later. They didn't see a threat in me. They saw a target. The street was silent after that, except for my grandson, sniffing against my chest while the cuffs clicked on a second pair of wrists. The woman's phone was still recording, lying face down in the grass where she dropped it. A deputy picked it up, unlocked it, and suddenly her own voice filled the air, bragging about how she had finally scared the old guy and how no one would question her if she said. The HOA approved it. Neighbors stared at her like they were seeing a stranger. One of them, a veteran with a limp I'd waved to for years, stepped out and said he had the same fake notice on his door last month, but was too afraid to speak. Another woman said her car was towed the same way. The deputy's pen moved faster. Then he turned to me and asked why my porch light had a hidden camera trigger tied to county dispatch. I looked at my grandson and answered softly, because I once trained people to watch for danger before it knocked. The word trained hung in the air, heavy and sharp. That's when I realized everyone was waiting for me to say more, and I still hadn't told them the part that would change how they looked at me forever. One of the deputies asked me straight, "Sir, what did you do before you retired?" I almost laughed at how gentle his voice was now. I reached into my wallet again and slid out something I never carry for show. Just for days I pray never come. It was a worn military ID with a faded photo of a much younger me in uniform, standing in front of a command tent. The room in that little circle of neighbors went dead quiet. The deputy read the rank, then looked back up at me like he was seeing a ghost. He called his supervisor over without a word. The HOA woman stopped crying and just stared like her brain had hit a wall. I bent down to my grandson and whispered that everything was over. But I knew it wasn't, not yet, because the supervisor walked over, shook my hand with both of his, and said loud enough for the street to hear, "Sir, you commanded the unit that trained half this county." And in that moment, I saw fear turn into something worse on her face, understanding. She stumbled back, clutching her clipboard like it was a shield. But the damage was done. Neighbors started murmuring and some stepped forward, showing the torn HOA notices they'd received over the years. "You lied to all of us," one woman shouted, pointing at her. Every single time. The deputies started taking statements, and the fake cops were being led away, heads low, faces red with shame. My grandson tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Grandpa, did you know they'd get caught?" I smiled, ruffling his hair. I always knew someone with power would try to cheat, kid. But sometimes it's not the power that wins, it's patience. The HOA woman sank to her knees in the grass, muttering to herself about losing her authority while everyone around her watched in stunned silence. The line she would never recover from left the street buzzing. You can't scare someone who's already protected, the world you don't even understand. My grandson hugged my leg, and for the first time all day, I felt the quiet victory settle over us. By the time the deputies finished writing their reports, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the street. The HOA woman had been escorted to a squad car, still sputtering about rules and authority, while the fake cops were being questioned separately. Neighbors lingered on their lawns, whispering and pointing, some taking videos, all stunned that the grandpa everyone assumed was harmless had been a commander who could outsmart them all, without a single shot fired. I bent down to my grandson one last time that evening, holding his shoulders. "Remember this," I said quietly. "Power isn't about yelling or badges. It's about knowing who you are and standing your ground." As we walked inside, I glanced back at the street. The cones were still there, the tow truck idle, the woman's phone lying in the grass, recording the chaos she'd caused herself. And I realized the story wasn't just about protecting our home. It was about exposing lies, teaching courage, and showing that sometimes the quietest person on the block carries the heaviest armor. The line that stuck with everyone would echo online for weeks. Never underestimate the man who's trained to protect more than just himself. The end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for amazing HOA stories.